Vou deixar sua bunda ardendo. Vou dar tapa, 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 pra caralho.
Welcome to Empowerment Unleashed Now, exploring your inner authority. I'm Michele Jones.
And I'm Scott Collins.
And this is the place to connect with your highest, most essential self, your most empowered self, where you can explore your inner authority and learn from others and learn more about yourself.
We talk with fascinating people from all walks of life about transformation, healing, hypnosis, astrology, physical experience of being human, and heart-centered living.
We're so thankful that you're here with us. Let's dive right on in. Welcome, y'all, to Empowered Unleashed Now. Michele Jones, Scott Collins, back again. Numero dos, right? This is our second, I would say gig, right? For sure.
After road dogging for many years.
Road dogging it for many years. I'm not sure what that means. Have I been road for many years? Well, one of the things that I'm really excited about today is that awakening your power from within is what we're going to be talking about. And one of my favorite humans and somebody that personally helped to change my life, a myriad of levels. So I'm going to do a big build up for this one. Okay. So our guest today is Steve Roehm. And Steve is, what isn't Steve? You know, Steve is kind of a Renaissance guy, what we were just talking about, right? About maybe it's a Gen X thing that we've taken on doing a lot of things. Steve knows a lot about botany. He knows a lot about motorcycles. He knows a lot about working out, but he knows a lot about the unconscious mind and hypnotherapy and how that interface of the unconscious mind with habits, behaviors, patterns, how it can empower us, it could disempower us. And one of the things what brought me to hypnotherapy, because in graduate school, right, at Vandy, hypnosis was one day, right? I, studied counseling, pastoral counseling. It's one day, oh, okay. And hypnosis, hour and a half class, 90 minutes, one and done. And so I had met Steve through sharing clients in common. You know, when you refer to people refer to you, but you never actually meet that person because they're really good at what they do and you're pretty good at what you do. So you're never out and about, yours with people. That was kind of who Steve was to me initially. He was somebody that I referred to because I had heard great things about him from my clients, right? And then I actually needed a hypnotherapist for a significant traumatic event that I had had in my life. And I literally, it was such a significant event that I couldn't walk into this man's office. I had to have friends with me. Okay. And I sat down because that was really all I could do because I couldn't walk. And I sat down in his office and he was well aware of the trauma. He said to me, I'll never forget it as long as I live. What can I do for you today? How can I help you today, right now? And
Because the power is always in the now.
how? Right? Because that's all that's real anyway.
Transformation only happens in the now. There are infinite opportunities for it.
Sure. And now, knowing now is really all that there is to know, right? So what I said to dude was, I had to really think about it because I hadn't even spoken. It was that kind of event that I just was shut the fuck down. And I said to him, I want to walk out of here on my own today. That I have to do that because I don't like the way this feels. I need that. And I walked out of his office that day. And I put myself on this because you know me, brother. I am a very, a scheduled, predictable person. Where's Michelle at 6 a.m.? Oh, yeah, she's, people can guess. So I put myself on this very like regimented schedule and I reached these milestones. And after I was a client of this for upwards of a good, solid, intense 6 months, I said, I want to learn what's happened to me. I want to understand this. And I want you to like do a class like at my place or something. And like, I need to learn this from you. And so I can't even imagine my existence anymore without hypnotherapy, which as a learning junkie for me is just a total opportunity to get into theta waves.
Yeah.
And like when I've sat with shamans, as you have, and I've had them come sit with me and I've held space, what they say to me is that the hypnotherapy that they experience in terms of conversation, you've said this to me, is similar to like visionary plant medicine.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why I think it's such a incredibly practical a skill, awareness first, and then skill to learn, to make it part of your martial art bag.
Martial arts.
And I also say that Steve was a teacher for both you and I.
What?
I always should go ahead and put that out there.
Yeah.
So we brought on one of our teachers, and similar reasons I was drawn to hypnotherapy also. I'm sure many of you out there probably know Brian Weiss, and if that's what got you into hypnosis, also Many Lives, Many Masters, books like that. The curiosity of past and parallel lives and unlocking that in our unconscious mind. But nail on the head when it comes to when you access the theta waves. If anyone that has ever worked with plant medicine, the psychedelics mainly, it is a very similar feeling and experience.
Mm-hmm.
And once you've worked with plants like that, they are always with you. But then learning this as one of your skills can actually help you really access that wisdom or access what you've learned without even needing the plant sometime. So it's a very powerful thing to have for yourself. You can learn to use it, self-empowerment, self-hypnosis, let alone, you sit with someone else like Steve does brilliantly, like you do in your work, and help them with it. And the thing I love about Steve is it's not just traditional, here's the stopwatch, look for, look into my eye type.
Like a pendulum.
Hypnosis. Yeah, I like the old stopwatch and a monopy.
Oh my God. Yeah.
But it's conversational.
Totally.
It's in learning.
It's alchemy.
It's in alchemy and learning. I'm very big with language anyway as a writer, but learning to use language even in an entirely different level of impact for yourself and the person you are talking to.
And that was my initial intrigue with hypnotherapy, was that when I was working in education, I became aware of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. And I had done some of that work with just the faculty and the staff that I was working with at the time. And I really was intrigued. And to me, hypnosis can exist unto itself, where NLP cannot exist without hypnosis. And so I felt like I had put the cart before like the horse. And when I started to learn from Steve and understand what was really going on in the unconscious realm, that landscape, it was one of the most empowering, I would say, experiences that have been a continual empowerment that just exponentially grows all the time. And that's why I'm honored. I'm humbled. I think that we should just like bring him on right now. And so, yeah, Steve Roehm, howdy. Voice whip lives of love. Deep bow for Steve Roehm.
Humbled. I'm doing great. Doing great. Excited about this conversation. You figure it out. Here we go.
We just said a bunch of really nice things about you.
appreciate that. It beats the opposite.
I hope you can take that in and receive it.
I appreciate that. Yes, it's nice to know the impact that I'm having on the world, and the impact that is my legacy, really, that you are taking out and continuing to do the work beyond what I've been doing. That's really been my goal, especially as I'm teaching hypnotherapy for the past 16 years. Is people taking out, learning how to do this work in a way that is, well, again, not the old bullshit that Scott was talking about, the swing your watch and all this stuff. It's ridiculous because change really does happen in the moment. And if you're paying enough attention to your clients and what they're saying, how they're saying it, not only verbally but physically, then you can tap into those unconscious responses and help people change really, really quickly, and before they're even aware that it's happening a lot of times.
Yeah, one thing, Steve, I really love about the way you teach is that it feeds the need for empathy. Like the attention to your intention is really profound when it comes to conversational hypnosis, because you're really, I mean, not unlike how improv actors are always saying yes to everything, but you have to become a listener of a next level and an observer.
Yeah, you have to really pay attention to what's being presented in front of you, and that's where traditional hypnosis falls apart, because most hypnosis trainings, and you were talking about hypnosis trainings, I've been through a lot of them, and some of them were terrible, because I walked out with a book full of script to go read at people. And when you're reading something at somebody, you're not paying attention to what's actually happening, and you can miss those really magical moments when the unconscious mind presents itself and says, "Hey, let me show you who I am right now." And if you're stuck behind a book reading a script to somebody, then you have no idea what's even going on with your clients. So I've angered a lot of hypnotherapists. I'm going to use finger quotes for them because I don't think they are. Anybody who's reading scripts at people, you're not a hypnotherapist. You're a reader. So if that angers somebody, then come find me. We'll talk about it. But the thing is, change really does happen in the moment, and if you're paying attention to those moments and being aware of the language that somebody's presenting, the way they're presenting their language, the changes in micro expressions and body language that they show you. If you're noticing these things, then you're connected with them in a way that most people will never connect with them. So there is a deep level of rapport that's necessary to do what I do and the way that I do it.
Mhm. Um, so, and from the sense of empowerment, right? That's why we're here to talk about how, in what way do you feel that, like, a statement, that applies to hypnosis, all hypnosis is self hypnosis. How does that, how can someone take that and help themselves be empowered by knowing about even why, like a casual person with, that isn't going to go study for several months like that. As a listener, as being on both sides of that, can you just maybe shoot from the hip? Like what can you give somebody that would want to be able to put a small, tool in their toolbox to use?
Well, first define what empowerment means to you and what it is that you want for yourself. And also understand where you are in the moment, because if you don't know where you are, you're never going to get where you want to be. It's being aware of the behaviors that you have, the beliefs that you have, what's holding you back, and recognizing those things is going to give you the ability to be empowered over yourself, to take control of yourself and make those changes for yourself. But if you don't know where you are, then and have a good view of what's going on with yourself, then it's highly unlikely you're going to get too far down the road. So, empowerment, it comes down to choices, really.
Yes.
It really comes down to choices. And the problem that I see in society right now is that most people are not making choices in that direction, because they're already hypnotized. And I had the conversation with a client earlier today, a potential client earlier today, and she said, "I've never been hypnotized." I said, "You've always been hypnotized." And she said, "What do you mean? Nobody's ever hypnotized me." I said, "Everybody's hypnotized you. Since the time you were a child, you've been hypnotized and taken in beliefs and accepted those things as truths for yourself, because I have a little different point of view of what hypnosis is than a lot of people. It's not about me taking control and shoving some idea in somebody's head. It's about allowing their mind to accept a new idea as a truth. And then from that truth, they start to create new beliefs, new behaviors, and new perspectives of themselves. And one of the things we were talking about a while ago, we were talking about my beard and kind of looking like Santa Claus right now. Santa Claus is the perfect example of hypnosis. But because when we're kids, for many people, they're introduced to the idea that there is some fat man that travels around the world in some red suit behind some flying reindeer, and he's going to land on your roof while you're asleep and bring you toys down a chimney you can't possibly fit down. And he's only going to do it if you're good. And kids take that on as a reality. I did the same thing. I'm 54 years old. I still want Santa Claus to bring me a new Harley. Oh, but the thing is, it's such a truth for us when we're young that it changes our entire perspective on the world. And it's towards Christmas when we try to act better so we can get more toys. On the behavioral side of it.
So if you're wanting to break from that hypnosis that many of us have been programmed into, what would tell you that you breached that? What would tell you, oh, I was hypnotized? What would tell you?
What would tell you that you've been hypnotized? Well, I think that just really the awareness of what has been happening to your entire life, and recognizing that the beliefs that you carry around are most likely programmed into you because of experiences you've had. And for really transformational work, it's almost, I'm not going to say it's impossible to do self-hypnosis and change yourself, but it's much faster to have somebody on the outside who can recognize those unconscious cues and those things that you don't recognize in yourself, because you can't possibly be aware of everything you're expressing at all times. I could sit here and I could talk about the vocal quality of how you express things. And when I do that, you're going to put more of your attention on your voice and the quality of your voice and how you're speaking, trying to be more eloquent, maybe not pausing when you want to and you shouldn't be. And by doing that, you're taking your attention off the body language that I may be watching at that point, or paying attention to the micro expressions, which you really have no control over anyway. But getting your attention out of the way gives me the ability to see things that you don't recognize in yourself a lot of times. So having somebody to facilitate that process, I think, is extremely important especially if you're working through big things in your life, traumas, things like that. Having somebody who can be there and have that kind of rapport, that kind of connection with you, being able to hold space for you as well. And really having that kind of connection that, the kind of connection I have with clients is not like a normal conversational connection. But there is something much deeper that happens during those things. And it's not a normal way to converse with people. It's not a normal way to communicate. So and I've been doing this for 25 years. This is not, I started learning the conversation work back in 2004. So I'm 20 years into that side of the work. Before that, I was doing kind of more traditional trancey kind of things that, you might assume hypnosis is, or might have assumed anyway. I hope you've got a better understanding of what it is now. But hypnosis can happen in a flash. And when you can, especially, and you all have been through the conversational trainings with me, learning how to short circuit somebody's idea so you can introduce a new way of helping them think about the experiences they're having. That can happen literally in seconds, and sometimes just a crazy question that throws them off kilter for a minute. It's you kind of push them into the deep end and then throw them a life preserver, if you will.
Give some examples of that, Steve, because I think that attention is a really important aspect of what you do with people and what people do with themselves, where attention is placed, how you actually in a flash can drop someone into a trance, how when we click the clicker, and if you could just speak to attention.
Well, attention is very limited, quite honestly. Really, you can only be aware of about 7 chunks of information at any given moment. And if somebody's attention is constantly on a problem, it's kind of like, you see this thing in front of you. Here's this problem, and it's always right there. No matter where you look, it's always front and center. It's always easy to come back to. But the problem is when you're only focused on the problems and the things that you don't want, you're forgetting to notice everything that isn't this, which is everything else, which at that point opens up your mind to endless possibilities. But we're so good at focusing on the things that we don't want to think about. And I include myself in that many times. I catch myself doing those things sometimes. Having that awareness, it makes it easier to get out of that. What's that, sir?
I was curious how it feels when you catch yourself.
How does it feel? I don't know that it's a feeling. I think it's just an awareness. I don't know that I don't know that I would associate any kind of kinesthetic experience to that. It's just like, oh, that's interesting.
But I think what you said is really the key, which is you're so focused on that one thing that you've really lost perspective about everything else that isn't that.
Yeah, and the thing is, it'd probably be more appropriate if I had a lens to look through rather than a pen to put in front of me, because the problems that we have a lot of times cloud the experience that we're seeing. There's a filter there, so we're filtering out the possibilities that are everything outside of those experiences. And that can go back to childhood, from parental beliefs that they carried around, that we accept as truths, whether our parents tell us that or not, just through observation many times, that we accept what they are experiencing as a reality because they're the example of the world. Here in the South, it's teachers, preachers, doctors, and parents. It's, those are the ones who affect us because they're the authorities in our life when we're kids. Many times anyway, we look up to them. I did anyway. I was very fortunate to have a great preacher when I was a kid who taught me a tremendous amount about having connection with people, and it's that was a life lesson that's really affected everything I do.
And so empowerment for you personally and hypnosis, what has it done for you, Steve?
What hasn't it done for me?
What has it? I need to answer that.
Well, I mean, if you'd met me 25 years ago, my life was out of control. Drugs, alcohol. I was smoking 2 packs a day. I was, actually it was 25 and a half years ago now. I was a disaster. I came from growing up. I was subjected to a tremendous amount of anger, and it kept me from really stepping up to who I could be at that time because I was always playing small. And I was constantly walking around on eggshells because I never knew what was going to set things off. So, using hypnosis to release the traumas that I had, the beliefs that I had about myself. The first thing, quitting smoking, was easy. After that, everything else was a little more difficult because that was the stuff that was covering up everything I didn't want to think about myself. The fear, the shame, the guilt, the anger, everything that was holding me back in my life. And hypnosis really helped me get some new perspective for myself and the possibilities of what I could do with it. So because I don't think I could do what I do right now if I hadn't gone through those experiences and know what it's like to be out of control in life.
I also think that one of the gifts that hypnosis, has given me, but in particular, it's because it's come through you, is so Scott and I were dialoguing about neutrality, right? Like, rather than things just being this or that, there's a lot of other possibilities. And one of the things that I think has been most transformative for me with hypnosis has been to understand that I shouldn't believe everything that I think. I am not my behaviors. And what I think that you, in particular, in your work with Nashville Hypnosis, that's how you can find Steve, is NashvilleHypnosis.com, is you have sat with a range of people. I mean, the stories that you have, Steve, and you have honored every single person that has come in to sit with you in a totally non-judgmental, neutral space, a neutral healing space. And being somebody that came to you in a very extraordinarily traumatized and fragile state, I never felt judged by you. I felt, and that's the rapport. That's the things that you were just touching on that kind of distinguish kind of the hypnotherapy, which I would say is extraordinarily humanistic in terms of a conversational alchemy, but recognizing the micro movements, recognizing the body language, taking it in and then giving back what it is that that human in front of you needs.
That's what I teach in that's what I teach in conversational alchemy.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and the thing is, the body movements and all that stuff is part of the conversation. In fact, it's the deepest part of the conversation because it's the unconscious responses that are coming out. So it's extremely important to pay attention to those things. And how could I possibly judge anybody for the I did, the crazy life I had? I damaged myself. I probably damaged other people along the way. You know, when I was in those states of mind, I have no place to judge anybody. I'm here as a conduit, quite honestly. Most of this just comes through me. And I hold space and try and love everybody who shows up.
I think that's the spiritual side of what you do. I've always said that, I found you to be, a very spiritual human being. And I think that you just articulated exactly why. And I think that the empowerment that can actually come from understanding ourselves beyond what it is that we actually think we are. And we actually start to get down into who we are and what we are and what we want to be. And then getting into this now, which is all that's really real. I think that you're doing better than 90% of the folks that are out there with just those awarenesses.
I would say that's true. I would say that my students are doing better than 90% of the hypnotherapists out there, even the ones who walk away from an 8-week training, because there is that awareness. It's not this disconnected experience that most therapists present. It's getting involved. It not necessarily in an empathetic way, because I don't get drawn into my clients' stuff because I know they're okay. They're flailing around in 3 feet of water. They just don't know how to stand up yet. So I don't need to get caught up in their stuff. I know they're okay. And I think I told you when you came in that you weren't broken. You're just cracked a little bit.
I don't even think you said cracked. I think you just really reinforced you're not broken.
Maybe that's or maybe that was a later thought. I don't know.
I just know that the level of vulnerability, and authenticity that you've afforded people that have sat with you as clients beyond just the educational side of what you do, holding that space, sharing that space, and actually loving people through their perceptions of their brokenness or their foibles, and actually showing them that that's like sometimes their BS, their belief systems, and how to move outside of it. And it's like that can happen in a conversation.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's just moving outside of it. I think it's stepping outside and recognizing what you can gain from those experiences too, and having the perspective of recognizing how we gain strength from the hardest things we go through. Again, I don't think I could do what I do if I hadn't been who I was, because those things really gave me a strength that I couldn't have gotten otherwise, because I survived it. Not everybody gets to.
And so I think that that's really a place of exploration in terms of our own individual empowerment, our inner authority, is that self-love, like love yourself and love yourself some more, that acceptance that everything that I am, is because I've been where I've been, and those experiences have shaped me in ways that you can actually feel good about yourself as opposed to feeling a fragmentation, which is, I think, what so many of us have about what's wrong with us.
I can only have compassion for that guy that I was, because he didn't know any better. I can't blame him for the situations and the things that he did back then any more than I can blame a 4-year-old for, doing something silly because they just don't know better. I didn't know better. I didn't know there were options, and those things didn't define me on the other side. They strengthened me and gave me new perspectives. But I think to speak to the terms of empowerment, I think it's important to understand what's really important to you as well. And most people don't have a good grasp of the values that drive them and the behaviors that they want for themselves. So I think it's really important to step back and understand your values, and even to weigh those values against each other to make sure that those values are fitting with the life that you want to create for yourself. Because I take people through a values elicitation process that typically they'll come up with 15 or 20. These high values, these are the things that I want and that drive me in my life. And then we start going through a hierarchy of them and starting to weigh them against themselves in different orders. And they recognize that, well, maybe that thing is something that I want for myself, but it's not what I've been living by. It's a value that I'd like to have in my life, but it's not who I've been. And weighing those things and really starting to break them down, we get down to the point where we end up with 2 to 3 top values that people can live their life through. Because if you're trying to live through 15 different values and making choices in your life based on those things, then you're going to end up confused a lot of times and not having real clarity for yourself.
I'm curious, really, almost both of your responses to this, but you brought it up. You mentioned the word vulnerability, and this program is about empowerment, self-empowerment. But how important is vulnerability in our self-empowerment? In that value pyramid, because when you think of the word empowerment and vulnerability, I think often they could be thought of as like opposite sides of the table, So power, vulnerable.
Well, sometimes people look at vulnerability as a weakness.
Right. How is it not?
Honestly, it's probably the most powerful thing you can do is to recognize, express that, and be open about where you are and who you've been. It doesn't mean that the experiences you're experiencing are who you are. It doesn't mean the things that you've done are who you are and define who you're going to be. They're experiences that you've experienced up to this point. And the beautiful thing is that every moment is a new opportunity. That's where the empowerment comes in. But it's making the decisions to make those choices to do something different with that moment, or that moment will just be wasted and it's just something else that went by. But again, knowing the values that drive you, what you want, what are your goals, what's important to you, and stepping into those things and making the choices that are going to get you where you want to be. That's true empowerment for me. Recognizing your weaknesses and saying, okay, that's okay. I've got this. I've got this weakness. It's fine. But looking at the strengths that you have and how those things can work together to create something better for yourself down the road is, I think it's absolutely necessary to hold the mirror up.
And does vulnerability open up like a wider Audubon to our feelings?
I definitely think so. I mean,
It's our intelligence.
it's our intelligence, right? I mean, the vulnerability to me speaks to an authenticity about a feeling that you're not filtering, right? It's just a raw experience of where you're at and who you are, and knowing that you're safe, that you're okay, that you're you, and there's nobody else like you, and that is really pretty fucking awesome in that rawness. Does that make sense?
Completely.
Yeah. That's my feeling about it, at least, that the intelligence, like one of the things that I think that I also learned with Steve is that the mind will betray you, right? Like it will play tricks with you. It will, do things that you don't even have the awareness that it's doing until you have that awareness, and then you can't not have the so, it's like, wow. And so just that level of empowerment, right? Yeah. Is, I think, a very beautiful place that one can awaken their inner authority from, and tap it.
Yeah.
Well, and that being said, again, having the mirror to look into before you decide you're going to trust the inner authority, because your inner authority may be full of shit too. It's
But that's just the learning.
well, but it's an awareness, because it's not just a learning. You can learn from it, but you have to have an awareness of it before you can learn anything from it. And the behaviors and the choices and the perspective that you have or have had, not necessarily, because it could hopefully will change in that moment when you have that awareness. But yeah, I think yeah, it's just you need the mirror to recognize where you are, and sometimes people need to be that mirror for you.
The sacred mirror, right? That's what we've talked about, time and time again. Like I tell people that that's all I am, is just a sacred mirror, like because I'm reflecting you, right? Like this is your dream. We're just sharing the dream, right? In this now. So, with that said, is there any thoughts, Steve, like about awakening, your inner empowerment, your authority that you want to leave us with? Like one of your nuggets?
Figure out what you want. You got to figure out what you want. The most powerful thing you have is your imagination, because from that we create everything. So decide what it is that you want. Find somebody who can help hold up the mirror for you and call you on your bullshit, and help you really start taking actions and behaviors that are going to really help you be who you want to be. What kind of legacy do you want to leave? If you were to step back and hear your own eulogy, what do you want it to say? Most people don't look that far down the road and think about what a legacy could be for themselves. And I think it's important for us to have that mirror and make some choices. Because the thing is, everybody watching this and everybody who isn't watching this, you're fucking amazing. And you don't even know how amazing you are. I mean, you're a spark of God on this beautiful planet that we're on. And most people are wasting their lives away. And I don't know if there are lives after this. I'm not sure. I don't know if there were lives before this. I know there's the moment that I'm in, and that's about it. But I know that the life that I have right now, I want to leave something behind that changes the world in a more positive way. And realize that the problems that you have, they're passing. They're passing. The experiences you had, they're not who you are. They don't have to define who you're becoming, but you can grow from them, gain the strength from them, get perspective about them, and maybe empower yourself to go out and help other people change their lives too. That's how I started all this.
Beautiful. Thanks for being the sacred mirror, Steve. Thanks for joining us in this conversation today. Just much appreciation.
Shall I send us away with an affirmation?
Scott's going to send us off with a little affirmation from all of this. And just want to send waves of love and gratitude.
Oh, yeah. Check out nationalhypnosis.com too. Go plug in.
Indeed.
And this broadcast is sponsored by NashvilleColonCare.com. Just a little. Thanks for reminding me, Steve. Thank you, Scott. You're going to take us on out with an affirmation.
Right. I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my experiences. I'm the awareness. The awareness alone is enough. The awareness is the transformation. The awareness is the truth. And awareness does not judge. My vulnerability is a cornerstone of my power. I love myself, and I love myself some more.
Right on, bro. We love y'all. Thank you so much for being with us today on Empowerment Unleashed Now. And we can't wait to be with you again and just get on out there and keep exploring. Peace out, y'all. Thank you. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Empowerment Unleashed Now. Please subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and let us know how this helped you.
Join us right here every week for another episode.